by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak. I guess, I mean, that works when I say it. It doesn't really work anymore when you say it, Clinton.
No, as the last two shows I've introduced, I said, I am Clinton Boring, currently without my co host, Ryan Sakoviak, who is
Flying solo.
at Red Wings game or at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we had two awesome guests. We had Redcast Rob, who enjoyed a delicious peanut butter egg sandwich with me. And we had draft guy Jared on this past Thursday to talk some NFL draft. Had a great show with him. He told me in the show he loves this and wants to keep it up every year. So I'm like, I'm down to do that, man. Fantastic. He got great feedback again from a new coworker who listens to the show. Again, the comment about his accent and how much they love that with him. That was the popular spot last year. So we love having Jared on. It was a great episode. Missed you though, Ryan. He really wanted to talk some Notre Dame with you. He was worried. Well, not Jared, but Rob was worried you weren't going to come back because Notre Dame lost the championship, so he wasn't sure you existed anymore.
Yeah, I actually, Ryan died, and I am his evil twin, Brian, who has assumed co-hosting responsibilities of this show.
And just full bore Bowling Green fan. This Ryan doesn't even Brian doesn't like Notre Dame.
Yeah, Brian has Ryan shackled in the electrical room. That's directly at my 12 o'clock right now. So if you hear any like rattling or muffled screams, you didn't hear a thing, Clinton.
So how was the game though? I never asked.
Aside from the fact that Dallas sucks, it was a cool arena. That was the first time I'd ever been to Little Caesars, which was kind of the impetus for the trip. It was a completely meaningless game because the Red Wings had been eliminated from the playoffs, and I'm kind of pissed that I bought our tickets when we did because it's not that they were expensive. Like we paid, I mean, we were like the literal last row in the upper bowl, which, I mean, the view of the ice was good, but it was right behind this like pergola mezzanine thing where
Interesting.
it's like a floating club level, and it was not visible on the Vivid seats.
Oh gosh.
So like I'm looking at the thing because you can click the section and it's like this is your view of the ice. I'm like, oh yeah, because I like sitting up high, either like being right on the glass or up high because you can see more, you can see the play develop. And I'm like, oh, these are pretty good. And then we sat down and it was like you could see the whole ice. It's not like it was obstructed view, but you couldn't see the jumbotron. So it was like when you watch a movie in IMAX and it's like that narrow view screen where it's like it's black on the top and black on the bottom was kind of like watching it like that, and it was kind of weird. I did not like it, but it was super easy. I don't like driving. I especially don't like driving new places because I get really antsy, especially like going to downtown of like bigger cities because it's just like you never know like what the traffic's going to be like and the road situation. It's like fuck, I have no idea where I'm going. I'm going to get lost, but we parked at the MGM, which was right off of the highway, which was a straight shot from our house. And then we walked half a mile to the arena. We didn't have to pay for parking or anything. It was really nice. I mean, a bunch of people did it. So and my cousin told me about it. He lives here. And I'm assuming that's a very known hack. I was afraid we were going to get a ticket. And I saw a couple cars with tickets. So I'm like, I don't know what that's about. But we didn't get one. And then getting out was super easy. So that was nice. But it's in downtown Detroit, not exactly the best, but it's in like the arena itself is really cool. The like the concourse, the ceiling is glass, so like the sun was coming in, like natural light. It was really cool. They had a lot of good food options, but yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Glad you had a good time.
I have my puck wall of arenas that I've been to is ever growing, and I've built it out a little bit more now, so it doesn't look like just stacked shit anymore.
How many do you have?
If we hold on, 1, 2, 3, 6, 9. If we're counting the now defunct Arizona Coyotes, I have 11.
That's cool.
If we're not counting them, it's 10 out of it's 10 out of the 32 current teams technically.
That's cool.
The goal is to get 32.
You just buy a puck at every new arena.
Yeah, just an official game puck, not like a game used puck, but you can get it at the gift shop at like $20.
That's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool.
It's like Pokemon. We got to catch them all.
Oh my god, I like that. I like that. Well, guys, if you are tuning in tonight, first of all, you can catch us on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, ITPCFB. You can find us on YouTube by searching ITPCFB. Don't forget to hit like and press subscribe. And of course, next morning you can hear all of our shows on your preferred podcast platform, whether that be Amazon, Apple, or Spotify, etc. Tonight we have a little bit of a change up. We had a bit of a curveball this morning. Unfortunately, our guest, Ryan, I'm blanking on his last name, Ryan Roberts, was supposed to join us from A to Z Sports to talk a second episode of Draft. However, unfortunately, his children are sick and his house has a house full of stomach bugs. So we had to quick pivot, and we're going to do Minnesota and Illinois spring preview tonight.
Oh, shit, Clinton. Breaking news.
Uh-oh.
YouTube TV announced today that they will soon allow customers to build their own multi-view options.
Just as I canceled them.
All right, well, you're getting them. I was going to say, you're getting them back in the fall. I'm sure it's going to be functional by fall. That's incredible news.
That is fantastic. They'll be the first ones to do it. They were the ones that introduced multi-view, right?
I believe so.
They should be the first ones to make the next step. That's what we all wanted for college football season. So now I don't have to watch some completely asinine game that I don't care about.
Yeah, I have have one quad box up on my TV and the other quad box up on the iPad, and there's 3 games overlapping just because I can't get the one game that I want in my quad box on there.
Absolutely.
You got Army Tulane in the corner of your quad box, and it's like, why is this my only option with the 3 good games of this window?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. So anyways, we had Minnesota. I had them planned as a backup, but I originally had I was going to pair UCLA or someone else with them. I'm like, nah, we want somebody interesting, so let's go with Illinois, because Luke Altmyer reaffirmed his commitment to Illinois yesterday. So apparently there was talk about him going in the portal somewhere.
To be fair, Clinton, I think UCLA has become incredibly interesting.
They have, I guess,
with the events of the last 10 days.
Absolutely right. So now my thought is, when our new guest, Mark Calkin, joins us from Locked On Trojans, we'll just split the episode for the Victory Bell. We'll do a USC UCLA. And we should have more and more developments of the Nico Iamaeva and brother Iamaeva stuff going on. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to get more details, and by the time we get to that episode, I'm sure there will be extra for us to hear. But Ryan, I'm looking forward to talking Minnesota tonight, having read a lot about them. It's an interesting team coming into this year. We've kind of briefly mentioned their schedule in previous episodes. And then same with Illinois. You brought up, I think this was before we went on our little brief hiatus, how the expectations are for this team this year, and I'm excited to kind of talk about them. So if you are ready, my man, let's kick off with the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
I feel like it would have been nice to incorporate sounds into this, but I don't know what sound I would have used for Minnesota. Is there a sound that you think of? What did Gophers sound like? Okay, speaking of Gophers, I have a groundhog living under my shed right now, and I thought I defeated it with a evil concoction of vinegar, garlic, and cayenne pepper, because apparently groundhogs don't like any of those things, so it repels them away. And I just went in the backyard this afternoon, and this motherfucker dug under my shed again.
They're beasts, dude.
I'm trying to resort to non-lethal means of dealing with it. I have these little garden stones that were somehow buried. I did gutters this weekend. It was fucking terrible. I had to go through so many tree roots, and I used a battle axe, and it was a time. But I think I'm going to put a stone in front of this hole that this stupid thing keeps digging up. I feel like Bill Murray in Caddyshack.
Oh, God.
Just a never-ending battle. I made eye contact with this thing last week. It popped out from this hole, and it looked at me.
It said, "You're my bitch."
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Anyway.
Send Lucy to the backyard.
No. The last thing I need is her to get bit by a groundhog, and then she gets rabies or some shit, and I don't need the vet bills or the stress.
We had one at the old house, and Lola went outside. I think Lola's yellow lab. Mm-hmm. She tore ass after that fat little thing, and it panicked when it had trouble getting underneath the fence because I think it saw its life flash before its eyes.
Yeah, we had that with a rabbit a couple weeks ago. She saw it at night and it tried to go to the back and it ran straight into the fence and I think it stunned itself for a minute and then it just
Gosh.
ran like 2 laps around the yard and got away from her. But I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. Anyway, I don't even know what sound a groundhog makes, but there
We'll
you
look
go.
into it.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll report back next week. But this was a fascinating team last year, Clinton. They rebounded from a 6-7 season in 2023 to finish 8-5 last year. Big win in the bowl game, 7-5 regular season. I think undersells how underrated this team was, I think is a good way to say it. Because you look at their 5 losses starting from the top. They had the heartbreaking season opening loss on Thursday night against North Carolina, a 2-point loss. Really, the only game they kind of got pushed around a little bit was the Iowa game. Early in the Michigan game, they fell behind early, a furious comeback, and then obviously the controversial onside kick that they should have recovered. Well, they did recover, but it was ruled that they didn't. So they were robbed a chance of driving for the win in that game. Just the inexplicable loss at Rutgers midseason when their offensive line forgot how to block, period. And then obviously the 1-point loss to Penn State in November when I think Minnesota was the better team for much of that game. And then obviously you had that last drive where James Franklin kind of grew up a little bit and showed some stones with a fake punt, couple 4th down conversions to seal that game away. But I mean, we're talking 4 of those losses here, Clinton, were a combined, Jesus Christ, I got to do math here, 5, 11, 12 points. So they were in pretty much every game last year. And I mean, you get a couple of breaks go your way early in the season. Who knows how things play out down the stretch there, man. But this was a sneaky good team last year. They have some coming back. I think there's enough coming back to be excited, but obviously they're going to have to replace a lot, and that starts at the most important position on the field, the quarterback, with Max Brosmer, who struggled a little bit early in the season, but then really hit his stride, and I thought he was really good in the second half of last year.
Absolutely. What was your nickname with him? Max Montana? Something like, what were you calling him at one point?
That probably, I don't remember.
Joe Brosmer? Is that what that was?
We'll go with Joe Brosmer. Someone will have to, if one of our 5 listeners remembers, you can just tweet at us.
Well, I mean, we get to see what happens with Max this weekend, see if he's drafted. You mentioned that UNC game. It was such a slow start. They didn't have Darius Taylor in that game due to a hamstring issue, which is now soft tissue asterisk next to him for the first 2 seasons of his career. But so Brosmer moves on, and you enter 4-star on some, high 3-star on others, but 4-star quarterback Drake Lindsey, and competing against transfer portal acquisition Zach Pyron.
No, Clinton. No, Clinton.
He gone now?
He is committed to South Alabama.
Okay, so he is officially gone
He is reportaled.
It didn't matter when I updated, now that this is up to date, because Drake Lindsey, per Minnesota interaction that I had, is QB1. He dominated most of the first team reps during spring ball. The full expectation, now it is full expectation, he is QB1 barring some massive setback to start the season against Buffalo. He's got a ton of talent from what I heard. He's got a massive arm. He's very accurate. He's been Minnesota's guy, obviously, since they acquired him. And the expectations are that he's going to do well right away. And I wanted to pull this up here just to quickly brief here. He has the biggest arm I've ever seen as a lifelong Gopher fan. Even bigger than second-team all-conference quarterback Adam Weber from the late 2000s. I do not know who that is. I don't know my Minnesota Gopher history that well. They're saying that Drake can make throws off of his back foot while maintaining a full velocity. And he's accurate. And then a hard worker, of course. That makes sense, right? If you're going to be diligent, that gives you a better chance to win the quarterback battle. So arm and size are elite, not a runner, but decently athletic. So there's your pieces from a Minnesota podcaster that we chat with and interact with. So I think it's exciting with Lindsey. Now, as a Minnesota team, I mean, oftentimes you see coaches string this stuff out till August, right? Mm-hmm. You want to name a starter. You want to make these guys work. But PJ Fleck is fully committed to Drake Lindsey, and I think it's a very exciting upcoming season for the Gopher fans because of him and what he is expected to be.
Yes, and unlike last year when I know North Carolina didn't really pan out the way many thought that they would, and obviously the Max Johnson injury, I don't know, did it happen in that game or was it
It
the
was
week
in.
after?
I thought it was in the Minnesota game
I think you're right.
because eventually they went down to their third string quarterback.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that happened late in the game. But that was a North Carolina team that I think some people thought would be okay last year, maybe not a world beater, but either way, you're starting your season on a Thursday night against a P4 team. That is always a difficult ask, particularly for a quarterback who's in his first year in the system. Not so much this year, man. They got a nice little preseason schedule to get Drake Lindsay acclimated. You got the aforementioned Buffalo, another Thursday night start for them this year. Week 2, you're taking on Northwestern State, whatever that is, Clinton. That's like the old in the longest yard when you schedule some slack Division 2 team like Appalachian State and kick the shit out of them. Quote. That sounds like what Northwestern State is here. And then you travel to Berkeley to take on Cal. So a long road trip there, but we're talking about a Cal team that has been
Decimated.
truly eviscerated by the transfer portal. Not only did they lose their number one receiver and quarterback in the winter window, but I believe their entire running back room went into the portal.
Five of them, yes.
Plus their tight end, so they are having to replace a lot. So that's going to be a pretty decimated Cal team. So realistically, Clinton, I mean, even if it's a little bit of a slow start offensively for this Gophers team, we're looking at what should be a 3-0 start there heading into a bye week before you host Rutgers, and then you go to Ohio State. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if this team was 4-0 heading into that game. And I mean, by that point, Ohio State will have had their own slate of games that they should win, not necessarily counting that Texas game, but we're talking about an Ohio State team that is also breaking in a new quarterback and having to replace a lot of starters from last year. So very fascinating early season schedule here for Minnesota. And one of the more fascinating storylines, I think, is going to be who becomes wide receiver 1 here, because Daniel Jackson is gone and he was their leading receiver the past 3 seasons. So you're going to need somebody to step up, and they certainly took their chances on guys in the portal.
Yeah, they added in 3 wide receivers. Added in? Did that even sound right? They added 3
in.
wide receivers in the portal. Javon Tracy, who comes from Miami, Ohio. Boo. UCLA's Logan Loya. Nebraska's Malachi Coleman. But they also returned Lameek Brockington, Christian Driver, Kenrick Lanier II, Tyler Williams, and Nuke Hayes. So the 2 that I was kind of reading about the most, no one has really fit the number 1 role just yet, but the 2 that have the most solidified roles are Loya, who in last year for UCLA had 29 catches, 348 yards, 4 TDs, so not overly impressive, but a reason why you could see he's in the portal. He's looking for more opportunities. And then Brockington, who they bring back, was an 18 catches, 282 yards, and 1 TD, I believe. That is a horrible writing job, whatever the hell I just did there.
Yeah, I just saw 18 catches for 28,000 yards. I'm like, that's a lot of yards. That's a lot of yards per catch.
Hell of a season. So those guys seem to be the ones with the firm roles, and then we kind of see where these guys can fit in. I think Coleman was the one I read that is a little more of the burner with maybe the higher ceiling, so we'll see how he kind of fits in. But when you lose a guy that's such a key cog in the wheel of your offense, being Daniel Jackson, it's not just 1 or 2, but 3 seasons that he has led this team in receiving. That's a huge impact, especially, as you mentioned, when you're breaking in a new quarterback. So spring is important, and maybe that's why Fleck rolls with Lindsay already, is to just let Drake have all the 1-1 reps so he's working with these receivers and getting as much time as possible to build rapport with them. But it's just not the receiver role that we're looking for here, Ryan. They lost a ton on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Ariante Ursary is about to go maybe late first, mid second tomorrow night. Well, I guess not tomorrow night, into Friday. Quinn Carroll's gone. Tyler Cooper also gone. They lost Phillip Daniels to Ohio State in the portal. They lost Martez Lewis also to the portal. That's 5 names right there, man.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were able to counter by bringing in UCF's Marcellus Marshall and Washington's Khalil Tafai, and then Kentucky's Dylan Ray. Something to note here, though, Tafai's been sidelined for a lot of spring, so he hasn't really been in there. So, again, you're looking at a pretty fresh new starting offensive line, and per the spring reps, it's from left to right, Nathan Roy, Greg Johnson, Ashton Beers, what a last name, Marcellus Marshall, and Dylan Ray. So you're getting some guys in who have some experience at other schools, but again, you're like tying in guys to a new system when you're breaking in the new quarterback. So just going back to what you said, how key it is that they're starting with kind of that soft opening versus a P4 team right away week one. But I think you and I's favorite part of the offense is the main staple they're bringing back. So go ahead and talk to us about Mr. Darius Taylor.
Well, you kind of touched on it from the top. Is he needs to stay healthy because he has certainly the talent, the potential to be one of, if not the best running back in the Big Ten, particularly given the talent drain in this conference at the running back position, right?
Oh, yeah.
We have both of Ohio State's guys are off to the NFL. Why am I blanking on the Michigan running back who was actually good this year?
Khalil Mullings.
Khalil Mullings is off to the next level. You know, no more your guy, Caleb Johnson. Why can't I remember Kyle Monangai is gone too. Jesus, I listen. There's not a lot going on in his brain today.
Well, listen, TJ Harden is also gone. He's not to the NFL, but he transferred out of UCLA.
So a lot of running backs have left this conference.
Woody Marks also gone.
Quentin
Joyner gone.
Jonah Coleman's back. That is a good running back.
RB1 in the Big Ten this year?
Yeah. Maybe? So, I mean, if Darius Taylor can stay healthy, man, I mean, we're looking at a guy who certainly has first team all conference potential. So he had an injury that limited him to 6 games as a freshman. I still think he ran for almost 800 yards despite that.
Yes.
Just short of 1,000 yards last year, 986. He had 10 touchdowns. Also 54 catches out of the backfield, man. That is hefty. That is a lot of work. So, I mean, for offensively, you need someone to step up out wide to take some pressure off of him. But I mean, as far as centerpieces of your offense go, that's a great place to start. The concern that I have with that, especially with a guy who has durability issues, is just kind of what you touched on, is the dearth of experience, returning experience at the offensive line.
Yes, I mean, you're already talking about a guy who's back-to-back years soft tissue. I'm not sure what the depth is fully like behind him. Bangura went back to Ohio. Happy about that. I believe, I'm blanking, was it Major from Oklahoma? I think he's gone. So breaking in some new pieces in the backfield as well. So your one staple is at the position that gets the shit beat out of him the most through the course of the season. So you need Taylor to stay healthy to help with this team and to get rolling in the way you want, especially with trips to Ohio State, to Oregon, and to Iowa this year. Those are 3 daunting places to play games. And you're going to have to rely on him because in a chaotic environment, what helps knock the crowd down? Big plays, but also a running game that you can control the clock, keep those high-powered offenses, not calling Iowa a high-powered offense just yet, but Ohio State and Iowa keeping them off the field. So it'll be exciting to see where this offense goes. I believe offensive coordinator stays the same at least, so that's a plus for Lindsey to have a consistent system there. Now I think the biggest thing that's kind of been consistent with Minnesota, even with changes in coordinators, is their defense. But their defensive backfield, which is pretty well known, had a hit to cornerback depth. They lost their 2 top cornerbacks from 2024, Justin Wally and Ethan Robinson. They each posted 42 tackles. Wally also had 10 passes defended, 2 INTs, and then Robinson 8 passes defended with 3 INTs. And as a common theme in today's game, they were able, though, to supplement through the portal. North Carolina Central, is that FCS, Ryan?
Probably.
Filling in Jalen Bowden, and then Zaquan Bryan showed a lot of promise last year as a reserve. But they do bring back Jelante McMillan, likely handling the slot duties, so you get at least one piece back in your cornerback room. But Ryan, it's our favorite guy to talk about on the entire Minnesota defense. Coy Parrish. He's back. Year 2, after a freshman phenom season. I believe he's a freshman All-American, if I am correct. Posted 46 tackles, 3 TFLs, 5 interceptions, and 3 passes defended in 2024. And wasn't there a course in the season where he went 3 straight games with an interception?
Yeah, it sounds right.
I believe at one point, but again, talking to our source here, Corey Parrish, he says, will be the second best safety in the Big Ten. Behind, I would assume, project Caleb Downs there. He'll be worst second team all conference. He'll also plan to return punts this year just to get, your best athlete on the field and get him playing. And they're talking about playing snaps at wide receiver in a meaningful way on the offense.
Oh boy.
So his confidence level is that Coy is about to take the college football world by storm. Sounds like maybe not just Thorpe, but we might get a little Travis Hunter Heisman love, Ryan. I don't know. I'll have to see
If
about
he's
that.
catching passes, there's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, but exciting player. You and I think, outside of Darius Taylor and Brosmer, was our feature every week, looking at Minnesota box scores and reading about the games. Is what did Coy Parrish do this week? What did Coy Parrish do this week? So, defensive backfield, that's kind of the change. With the one constant is you get Parrish back. Jaw Joyner is a defensive lineman that's gone from Minnesota, but I kind of put the emphasis on putting this stuff together on the offense because defense has been their kind of centerpiece, staple focus for the past few years, something they could lean on. So hopefully they can lean on them again this year as they break in a pretty damn new offense.
And I forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, let's move on. So kind of the opposite end of at least the offensive line spectrum, Clinton, is Illinois, who returns everybody on the offensive line after I don't know if we necessarily want to call 2024 a breakthrough season for them since they were good in 2022, but certainly a rebound season after just a dastardly poor 2023. And I know we did not have particularly high expectations for this team last year, but
Scott pretty much put him in the ground, I felt like, when we talked to him.
Yeah, there was when we talked to Ryan Burns about Minnesota, I was kind of down on him heading into the year, and I'm like, after talking to him, I'm buying this team as a bowl team, and that was the exact opposite thought that I had with Illinois. So shit, after we talked to Scott, I'm like, is Bielema gonna get fired after this year?
Yeah.
But I mean, just about, I wouldn't say everything that could have gone right went right for them last year, but boy, the offense took a huge step forward. The defense was once again salty, and a big reason for the offensive explosion was the growth of the pass game, and Luke Altmyer was the centerpiece of that. He returns this year, 22 touchdowns last year, only 6 interceptions. He stayed healthy. That was huge. The issue for the passing game is the two big guys out wide, Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant, are gone. In addition to running back Josh McCray, who entered the transfer portal in the spring window, just committed to Georgia, had just over 600 yards and 11 touchdowns last year. But this was kind of the one thing that I took from talking to Scott last summer was very deep running back room, and they needed it last year. Caden Fegan suffered a knee injury. Yeah, the big man suffered an injury early in the season. So him being healthy this year, I don't know if he's expected back for the start of the season or if it's going to be a mid-season addition. But
in the article I read today, he expects to be ready to go for the season.
There we go. So that would be a huge add to the offense here. But aside from the wide receiver position, which we'll touch on in a second, man, this should be a good offense again this year, if only because you're bringing back Altmyer, who should be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten. You're bringing back everyone on the offensive line, all 5 starters, and you have good depth and experience returning at the running back position. That's a great place to start, but how high this team's ceiling is in 2025, I think, is going to depend on somebody out wide taking a step forward, and it doesn't have to necessarily replicate what you got from Franklin and Pat Bryant, but you need something out wide to at least look similar.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the progression, I feel like, from year one of Altmyer at Illinois, where he was 13-11 TD to interception, to the 22-6 that you said last year was the help at wide receiver. And then, of course, a good running back room to lean on. But, man, it's your 2 studs. I mean, 1,636 yards combined and 14 touchdowns. That's a hell of a lot of your offense that just walked out the door. But you do return Hank Beatty. He was 3rd on the team last year with a whopping 294 yards. And then Colin Dixon also returns with another whopping 264 yards. So when we say Franklin and Bryant accumulated everything, that's what it was. They were the passing offense. You get Malik Elzy back. They're kind of hoping that he blossoms into the 4-star talent, or from the 4-star talent that he was rated as, kind of blossoms into something this season. First 2 seasons have been not great. He has a combined total of 129 yards. Not quite what you're looking for when you're Illinois and you can swoop in a 4-star talent to build your offense around. But they went to the portal. They got Hudson Clement from WVU, who had 51 receptions for 741 yards last year and 5 touchdowns. And then Justin Bowick from Ball State. Not a whole lot going on. He was kind of a bouncing around. He was at a FCS program before Ball State, but he's massive. He is 6'5", 195 pounds. So if they can get the best out of him, and even if that's moving the ball down the field and he's a red zone target for you, that is a behemoth of a man to be able to throw the ball to. The best kind of thing as far as positionally I was able to get out was that Hudson Clement is expected to fill the Z spot that is going to be vacated by Zachary Franklin. But a ton that needs replaced there. They had a tight end going to the portal as well. He didn't do a whole lot for them last year, so I don't know what the expectation was going to be this year. But that's a ton to fill in on a receiving department that you needed. But at least you're not breaking in a new quarterback. Altmyer, third-year starter for Illinois. He knows the offense. They survive, I guess, a bit of a scare that he might have entered the portal. Apparently, reading articles, it's rumor season. Tennessee was sniffing around, trying to get him out of the portal or into the portal before they got Joey Aguilar to commit. How funny that is there. I thought I also maybe read Tulane. I might be incorrect on that, but teams were sniffing, trying to get him out. I wouldn't know why you would leave. Honestly, I don't know why you'd leave Illinois to go to Tennessee.
No, I agree.
Where you're at, like when you look at your schedule, and we'll get to that shortly. I mean, you're looking at possibly 9-3, 10-2. The hell are you going to Tennessee for, to get beat around in the SEC every week? No, thank you. You don't even know if your NIL check's going to cash.
Nope.
So you mentioned the running backs. Aiden Lowry comes back. He had a big regular season finale against Northwestern last year, but I guess who didn't have a big game against Northwestern? 172 yards, 3 TDs on just 12 carries. Your boy Keaton Fagan's back, 6'3", 250. He's the power back. And then Khalil Valentine was a guy we talked about last year as a freshman running back, likely going to be RB3. He's athletic, shifty, got next-level straight-line speed, kind of their change of pace back this year. But they also brought in Clement's brother into the running back room as well from WVU. So we got a brother duo there. You mentioned, I just want to touch on the names real quick since you brought up the O-line, returning all 5. You got from left to right J.C. Davis, Josh Geske, Josh Kreutz, Brandon Henderson, and Melvin Priestley. So, and then Priestley sounds like, again, refresh my memory, a guy that I believe they acquired last year, I think from the portal. So an impressive offense that Illinois and Bret Bielema bring out here. But it's just not offense. You look at their overall roster, Ryan, it's going to include the defense. 16 of 22 offensive defensive starters return to this team. So before we move over to the defense, you have any final thoughts about Illinois and their offense for 2025?
No, I think that touched on it pretty well.
You know, it's saying something when Georgia plucks your running back from you.
Also true.
He must be pretty good if he's going to the Bulldogs. So now we take a peek at the defense. And we go back here. There's a stat that I had here. We'll get to it. The biggest thing was the defensive line. And they're looking for some portal guys to elevate this D line to make it be a team strength. They're expected to be a team strength, but they got to improve in the run defense, which allowed 148.4 yards per game last year. That's tough when you've got teams in the Big Ten who like to run the ball. So they brought in the three big names in the portal was James Thompson Jr. Yes, guys, if that sounds familiar, he was a former Wisconsin Badger injured for the 2024 season. But in 23, he had 29 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 pass deflections. You also bring in former teammate of his and now current teammate Kurt Neal from Wisconsin. And Tamawa Dorajaye. What do you think, Ryan? You think I got that? Close, maybe?
Close enough.
from Florida State to kind of add some depth and beef up that middle interior. Perhaps the biggest hit for them, though, was Alex Bray, who was expected to be a starting edge for them this year, just entered the portal yesterday. So that is a big hit when you're this late in the game. The spring portal closes in 2 more days, I believe, and you're losing a projected starting defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's been no word on his possible destinations yet, nothing listed, so maybe a return to Champaign is on the horizon here if they can talk. Maybe this is an NIL flex of, hey, you're expecting me to do more, now I want more money. Who knows with the way the world goes now. But they're looking to lean on the defensive line. But, Ryan, there are 2 key guys back on the defense that I'll let you talk about who are going to lead this defense.
Yeah, so in the back 7, outside linebacker Gabe Jacques, 74 tackles, including 13 for a loss and 8 sacks last year. Returns in the defensive backfield, Matthew Bailey had 94 tackles, 2 for a loss, and 1 interception last season to help pace a defense that allowed 21.7 points per game last year. Good, respectable number, good for 31st in the country. But, I mean, that feels like a Bielema special, right? Like, good defenses. And I know they lost their DC for 2023 and took a bit of a step back. Seemed to rebound well last year, so curious to see what they have for the encore this year. But when your offense is projected to be as good as we think Illinois' offense is going to be next year, you don't need a shutdown unit. You need a unit that's going to keep the play in front of it, not allow any big catastrophic plays.
Which they did at times, like at Penn State last year. They did a great job with that. Penn State's offense wasn't exactly vaunted.
Also,
no receivers could catch the ball.
Also, yes, but also on the other side of the coin, you have the second half against Purdue when they allowed like 42 points.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword there. Double-edged sword.
Cannot have those highs and lows.
Hey, at least you weren't Indiana State. You didn't give Purdue a second win.
This is true. This is true. Got close there for a second.
I think, kind of just to sum the whole thing up before we get to the schedule, and we can tie this in, is I think it's just dealing with expectations this year, Ryan.
Yes.
A huge year last year, 10-3, 6-3 in the conference. You finished 5th in the Big Ten. The team that finished 4th in the Big Ten won the national championship. Now, I understand what that team that was in 4th had, but you're expected. We've talked about this. Many people are listing them as a preseason top 10, top 15 team.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to carry in for a team that rarely spends time in the top 25 in college football.
Yeah, that's just it's almost like a mindset shift, right? Like, I think as fans, and I mean this goes for everything. It goes for teams, it goes for players, right? Like, we think all of this exists in a vacuum where it's this player, I've deemed this player to be good, or this recruiting service told me this player is good, or this player was a preseason all-conference player, therefore he must be good, and therefore he must perform at this level every game because there's absolutely nothing else that can impact his performance or his mindset or how he functions within just like the fabric of this team. And when we're looking at this Illinois football team last year, right, like the 2023 season was not good, 5-7, which followed up the really good year they had in 2022. So you're coming in, people aren't really expecting much from you. You start 4-0 against a schedule that, no disrespect to Kansas and Nebraska, who had perfectly fine seasons, it was not exactly a murderer's row of schedules. You get a chance at Penn State, again, a game no one's expecting you to be competitive in because it's at Penn State, a Penn State team everyone expected to be a playoff team last year, and you held tough for the entirety of that game. You come out of a bye week, you get a poor, truly poor Purdue team, and your defense forgot how to play football, and you very well could have lost that football game. Now, they rebounded well. They beat a down Michigan team, but outclassed at Oregon. There's no shame in that. Followed it up the following week, losing to a Minnesota team we just talked about. Was a fine football team last year. I think they were better than their 7-5 regular season record indicated, but still probably a game that, if like we're looking at this retrospectively, you probably would have liked Illinois to win that game. You'd like to see them win that game if you were Illinois. And then you finish the season against Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. Again, not exactly a murderer's row of opponents, but then you clip South Carolina in the bowl game. So a huge win to end the season, and that springboards you into a 2025 season where now people expect you to be good. Like there's a different set of like mental internal circumstances that come with those expectations, right? Like you hear the saying or the phrasing all the time where it's people will say, well, we have nothing to lose. We can play loose because all the pressure's on the other team. Well, now Illinois finds themselves in a situation in 2025 where there's probably a little bit of pressure on them. Pressure
Absolutely.
that I don't know that they've necessarily felt as a program in a really long time. Maybe, and honestly, maybe they felt it a little bit going into 2023, coming off an 8-5 season, and they didn't really follow it up well. Looking back at that 2023 season, so I mean, looking at the schedule here, I mean, you start against Western Illinois. Is that the Western Illinois team that hasn't won a game in like 900 years?
It might be.
Um,
Poor guys.
But then you're at Duke, which I mean, you should beat Duke, but this again was a good Duke team last year that they bring in Darian Mensah to play quarterback for them. So I mean, that's going to be a tough out. You have Western Michigan again, a game you should win. And then you have to go to Indiana. And in Big Ten play, I think there's really only two games that I look at and say, boy, I don't feel great about Illinois' chances here. And that's one of those two games. So I think, I mean, I feel like we say this about every team. We're really going to know what we're going to really have a good idea what this team is after this game. But I mean, the Duke game will give us some insight, but I feel like we will know how real of a contender for the playoff Illinois is after they play Indiana.
Yeah, and I believe
You're directly comparing them to, I know Indiana's has some turnover, and we talked about that a couple weeks ago, but you're directly competing against a team that was in the playoff last year, went 11-1 in Big Ten play, and is still bringing back enough of that roster that they should be in consideration for the playoff again this year.
absolutely. Flash them back to Duke. Manny Diaz is still there, correct?
Yep.
So they're going to have a good defense, and you're on the road, and you are replacing wide receivers. Again, it's best to walk into a raucous Duke Blue Devil environment for football with a veteran quarterback. But you mentioned the at Indiana. That's going to be, I believe, a pretty early important game for Indiana as well. I don't think they have much before that. That place is going to be rocking when they come in there.
You are correct. Indiana's first three games are quite literally tap-ins.
So you get hopefully a 3-0, 3-0 Big Ten battle of two Big Ten teams who you're not your 1As of Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, but they're sitting as the 1Bs this year. Indiana's coming off the playoff run, and Illinois has all the expectation that you talked about the season last year. They win that game against Minnesota, they're 10-2. Ryan, they're standing there in playoff consideration. I'm not saying they get in, but the Big Ten has another one in consideration there. And then you're going to get USC, who is right now about as hot as they've been off-season wise. Under Lincoln Riley, they are building momentum. If you listen to Josh Pate at all, and I watched a short clip, vibes are great at USC. He's saying it's a program that feels like they're Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State coming off playoff appearance. Like, it's either all smoke and mirrors or they're going to be legit. They got something brewing. So,
Quentin, can I give you some insight to the Chad Bowden experience?
what's that, Ryan?
This motherfucker is the king of off-season
Promotion?
championships. Yeah, king of self-promotion, yes. There might not be anyone better at self-flagellation in the sport of college football than Chad Bowden. He's the king of the off-season championship. This was literally the Notre Dame playbook 3 years ago, when at this time in the spring, they had the number one recruiting class. They were going into the summer. They were going after Dante Moore. There was all this talk about all the 5 stars they were going to land. Here comes Peyton Bowen. Here comes Dante Moore. Here's Keon Keeley. And guess what happened? They lost all of them.
Yeah.
It's the Chad Bowden playbook. You fucking prey on kids to get them to commit early. You play on their insecurities. You make them all these big grand promises, and then they see through your bullshit, and they're like, peace. No, thank you.
Yeah. So now they're riding hot. We'll see where they are. But anyways, they seem pretty all in on Jaden Maeva. We're going to get into USC here in our next couple episodes once we get a date figured out here. But then you're at Purdue. They gave you trouble last year. the ceiling's the floor, so they can't really be any worse unless they don't win any games. But then you got to you get Ohio State at home. And we just talked about at Ohio State for Minnesota, but if you want to clip them, I remember 07 when the Juice Williams led Illinois Fighting Illini clipped Ohio State, who was, I believe, number 1 in the country at the time. And if Ohio State beats Texas, and we're looking at October 11th here, they're going to probably be number 1 in the country again.
Should be.
However, you talked about the expectations. So the one thing from the Ohio State side and the Indiana side is you're not going to catch them off guard. They know you're coming because you're a top 25 team to start the preseason, right? You're not going to sneak by them. I think the key thing for them is we talked about that east to west and west to east coast travel so much last year. They get a bye week after the Ohio State game, which is significantly important, before they have to go to Washington. I think that's huge for them. You're going to be bruised and battered, whether you win or lose the Ohio State game. You're going to need that week off before you got to go make a long flight. Rutgers, don't really know what they're going to be. I mean, Kelly McManus is back, but they're dipping some guys in the portal as well. No Kyle Monangai to lean on this year, and that was heavy for them last year. You're getting a Maryland team who we've already talked about that, like, expectations I wouldn't say are overly high for them. They're kind of off-season champs right now. They're Zion Grady and a bunch of other guys are paying a lot of money to come try to get them to stay there. But if this season goes awry, they're not going to be there much longer. At Wisconsin will be tough. We'll see what they are. I mean, the end of November, hopefully Edwards stays healthy, and then you finish with Northwestern. But all in all, Ryan, I look at that. If you clip Indiana, let's give you the loss to Ohio State. I think most people expect that. If you just get to Ohio State and that's your loss to that point, it's quite feasible you could be 11-1. And you're in the playoff. Even at 10-2, if your loss is at Wisconsin or at Indiana, and if Indiana's vying for a playoff spot, you're 10-2. You're in the playoff talk. There is some outside pressure, even more other than inside pressure, on this Illinois team. So I'm curious to see how they deal with these expectations. That's my biggest takeaway from this spring preview is the expectations. How do you handle them? You're a winning program now, and if you want to be a consistency is the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing for programs like these to have because they're not always at the level of the money and those type of things like an Ohio State or a Michigan or even an Oregon within the same conference that we see here.
Cool.
So,
yeah, I agree.
I'm excited, man. I'm really looking forward to it. And you mentioned Minnesota has another opening Thursday night game. Our Ohio Bobcats go against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights on that opening Thursday night pick'em show we'll have. So I'm pretty juiced for that. That'll be a good night. Good night. But
there we go.
Exciting to come across. These are two teams you guys should really watch. I mean, they're both potential 9-3. Don't have to stretch too far to see 10-2 for Minnesota if things fall right. So two interesting teams to keep your eyes on.
That is all I have.
Yeah. Guys, again, check us out. Twitter, Instagram, ITPCFB. Give us a follow on the preferred podcast platform that you have. Leave us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. And then follow us on YouTube, ITPCFB. And then if you're listening again, please go check out the Draft Guy Jared episode. You only got one more day, really, before the draft goes live tomorrow night at this time. I will be stuffing my face with pizza and wings and probably adult beverages at this time tomorrow night. But thank you all for joining us if you tuned in live, and thank you for joining us if you tuned in the next morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. We will be back with you guys on Monday next week talking USC and probably something else. I don't know yet. Stay tuned.
Maybe USC if we get our guy for Monday. If not, we'll let you know.
We'll be talking about something. Stay tuned for Twitter. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Go Stars. Bye-bye.